already know. Beat the eating.
First thing Robbie does when he gets to we were like,
Live down there in Roanoke County. So, I don't know. Maybe that's not. They used to be up there on that. So I was
school board. And we're live.
Hi, I've been thinking, do I need to know if it's public speakers? And they're like, oh, we don't have that tonight. Because I have to push buttons, but.
I don't know why. I don't know what. I don't know why they're asking their city. Hello, welcome.
Hey.
What do you think? Are you excited?
I'm in here on approved business. Jessica, I'm sure, regaled you.
Yes, I heard, and I heard about your malfeasance.
Yes. I said, what's my walk of shame, Mr. Perkins? I'm like, I've had this badge and the garage door opener for 24 hours. But how's it going? Oh, thanks again for the behind the scenes tour.
I still have that.
Hi, welcome. How about, wasn't quite sure what I was supposed to do this. I figured I had disappointed you somehow. Are you sitting behind the column on purpose?
I am. You can see me out of the corner of your eye.
I need to go spit my gum out is what I need to go do. Hey, Meander. Hi.
I even put pictures down.
Huh?
They put a picture of you.
Oh, it's my picture. Hi, how are you, Brett?
No, I mean, just. I
Your mic.
Okay.
And it's not gonna be. We've had to make it.
Yeah.
But you should be able to hear everything.
Okay. All right. All right. That sounds good. Hey, Claire. Tell her in a minute. Hey, I'll be better at that. What? Okay, we can. Oh, look at that. Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Me? No, 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 no. I'm not.
Good, how are you?
Yes.
David.
He wanted me to say hi to you and tell him how much she loves working.
Hello, Dr. Jameson.
Hello,
How are you?
Collins. How are you?
I'm well. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
How have you been? How was your holiday?
I'm Gucci. I am tired. I'm good. How's your birthday?
It was
Isn't it? This is my periodically.
I came to we went down to Charlotte. That's where my wife's she has some family. Celebrated down there.
Oh, great. Hey, how is it sitting down there? Are those seats better?
Definitely better than and those chairs evoke, and this is a compliment, Star Trek Next Generation.
Yeah.
The past couple of years, it's been
Star Trek Next Gen vibes. I didn't think about that, but
I think that's really
you know what? Wait, is Next Gen Picard? That's the only problem. Is that wasn't the next one a female captain? What was that one?
yeah, that was
What was
Voyager.
Voyager? Discovery. A Voyager. Because I actually watched the Next Gen.
How are you?
How are you?
You as well.
Hi, good to see you.
engaged.
Oh!
This is good. Well, hey, William, how are you?
Good, are you? Oh, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Me too. It's here we are.
Good one? Already? Thank you. Thank you. I'm excited. Like, first meeting in the... Ooh, it feels so nice, too. I know. Last time I just got to take, like, pictures, like, during the tours and stuff, but this time it's like, yes, it's finally happening.
I am starving. I am tired.
Is this your husband? My husband called. Oh, we just can't have food out.
I know that's fine. I don't dare get something. We just ready. Let me see what I can
I
get
got
up
the
there.
same kind of thing.
Do I need my ID?
I think he had your first one.
I'm gonna take this though, thanks.
Okay, yes.
I might get something.
And I said, what's yours? I'm like,
Happy birthday. Don't you
this is what I said.
How are you? How's it going?
I mean, he was like, no, I've known him longer than you have.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, good job. Good job.
Oh, your little barista?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Your barista?
I hope this wasn't.
Don't make me talk about it on camera.
You can like say no or
I
give me
know.
a timeline on this. You know, like, it doesn't need to be by the that
I
evening,
happen to
so.
have like 70% of that done. I just needed to update it.
Got it. Okay.
Gary, how are they still all in?
Oh. The face things were because I was like, well, I can't see my nameplate from here now. You know, like.
Yay, good, good, good.
I know we've had a couple of times. Good for today.
Oh, they do really? And y'all should be in it.
Yeah, that's a definite learn. They gotta go up the.
Refreshment room.
Good. Hi, Joyce.
Hello.
Hi, Joyce.
I'm gonna go back there for a second.
Hi. I like your pants.
Yeah, how was your? Oh, I was gonna say, how was your Easter?
Good.
Ooh, that's good.
Now look for your picture.
I gotta look for my picture.
We are live, so they
You're
can
down
know.
towards, you're on the other side of the.
Oh, okay, that's the muted part.
Okay.
Look for my picture.
In just a couple of minutes. Okay.
Howard's gonna be watching it.
Upstairs.
I know the face.
Where is Howard? Can I see Howard?
Yes, I know.
Okay.
Everything.
So when I wave at him, he doesn't know.
Oh, he can see you.
He can see me. I know, but I can't see him.
I'm gonna run in here for just a second. This is
Oh,
my
God. Okay. This is a lot.
Yes.
All right.
right now.
I will.
Here,
Yeah, I
like
think
in
we're gonna
2
start.
minutes.
I think we should get purse hooks.
Yeah,
Yes.
well, we could.
yeah.
That's
They have
true.
the good bars.
Yeah, like
That
in a
is
good bar.
true, very true.
You know, I think we should.
Oh,
have-
I could bring in, like my stocking hangers.
That's that would also work. That would for sure also work. Ah, here, I'll put this little note here for however it goes.
Hi, how's it going? I like that suit.
Thank you.
Who all the people are out there.
So you can see where your seat is.
Nice.
On the other side.
Thank you.
Gonna be behind the pole.
Got that one.
Who's here?
Not on the agenda.
Oh, that's right, it's a work session. Okay.
Yes. I have thought that
Everything
3
about
separate
this-
times, and I was like, do I have?
I'm like,
No, I don't
oh,
need-
that's my picture. All right. So I'll do it right here. I'll do it before I turn it back. I can't see him at all.
Hello. Hey, so for a second I thought we could eat down here, but they're like, oh, you can't eat. It's like, oh. So I was like super ready to eat the salad, so I passed it left. But, I mean, it is a nice table.
You all set, my friends?
Yes, ma'am. I got confused. I remember the picture, but I didn't.
Great idea. How do I
I
know
think that
if Howard has seen me? I'm ready.
Gonna be loud.
The first hammer in our new boardroom. The April 22nd, 2025 School Board Special Meeting and Workshop is called to order. Mrs. Tresky, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Apel. Here. Mr. Cherry.
Here.
Mr. Link.
Here.
Ms. Quintana.
Here.
Ms. Trigg.
Here.
Mrs. Watkins.
Here.
Dr. Jamison.
Here. The board appreciates all of you who are here this evening, and I will give a particular shout out to Mayor Cobb as well as Councilman Hagan. Thank you for joining us here on our inaugural meeting in our new boardroom. And we welcome those also who are viewing this meeting via live stream on the division's YouTube page. We are really starting out new in this inaugural boardroom. We are a new location, new room, new live stream. We will move on now to the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Ms. Watkins, seconded by Ms.
Great.
Yeah, it was Ms. Trigdon. Oh my gosh, I can't find my people.
Oh,
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we'll move right into Dr. White's superintendent updates this evening.
All right. Good evening, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the school board, members of the public this morning, this evening. I don't know what time of day it is anymore. It's all blending together. So good evening. And this evening we're bringing several items, but I just want to start with saying Happy Earth Day. Everybody, happy Earth Day and happy early Administrative Professionals Day. And I just want to give a shout out to all of our administrative professionals who work so very hard for our children. So thank you for all that you do. So we do have lots of items for your consideration and information this evening, including an update on transportation, an update on the textbook adoption process and approval of the K-5 English Language Arts textbook adoption, an update on the elementary Spanish program, approval of the personnel reappointment list for the 25-26 school year, first reading of policy revisions, an update on the fiscal year 26 budget, and finally an update on the Department of Education's request for certification under Title VI and SSFA versus Harvard. So before we get to our agenda items, I would like to highlight a few items for the board and for the public's information. Last Thursday, we hosted the 4th annual RCPS Works Student Job Fair. It was wonderful to see so many of our students and families come out for the event. Thank you to our board members, thank you to our mayor and others who came out for the Student Job Fair. We had students and families come out. We also had more than 80 employers come out for the Student Job Fair who were able to interview our students on the spot and show our students the various possibilities that are out there in the workforce. As part of this event, our special education department also hosted a transition fair for our students with disabilities. And new this year, we hosted Roanoke Summer Connect to help our elementary and middle school families discover free and low-cost summer opportunities. So a special thank you to Dr. Haley Poland. Back there, I see her, Jess Truex, Delegate Sam Rasool, who was instrumental in pulling together community partners, and to all of our community partners for their hard work to ensure that the event was successful, and it surely was. So hats off to the team. Speaking of our summer programs, this evening families of students who qualify for the new STAR summer program will receive a text this evening with additional information about registration. We also will be sharing more information this week regarding our Staying Safe by Staying Connected programming opportunities for our middle school age students. Finally, our Spring Early Literacy Academy will be held next Tuesday, April 29th from 5:30 to 7 at Fallon Park, Round Hill, and Hurt Park elementary schools, which are the 3 different host locations. I also want to encourage our families with students in pre-K through 2nd grade to attend the Early Literacy Academy. This will actually be a student showcase where our elementary students will show off their amazing literacy talents, so we want everybody to come on out. We will also be sharing literacy strategies that you can use at home, as well as giving away free books. So let's hear it for free books. I want to thank our literacy and our community engagement teams for all of their hard work. I see our literacy team in the back, so thank you for all of your hard work and your focus on early literacy. So let's get started on our reports for tonight. We're going to start with transportation. So I will ask our Chief Operations Officer, Chris Perkins, to come forward with an update on transportation. Mr. Perkins.
So good evening, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start by saying today is School Bus Driver Appreciation Day. So Let's give a round of applause to our school bus driver. I think if you will look back 1 year from tonight and look at the meetings that we had about transportation last year, you will agree with me that we have completed a 180 compared to where we were this time last year. So tonight, we have our team from Zoom here, and I'll do some introductions with them later. And I'm going to ask them to share some very exciting news with you about how well transportation is performing. But before we get there, there's a couple of people that I do want to recognize and thank. So let me start with Walter Dowdy. Walter Dowdy is our Director of Transportation. He will be featured in a national publication through Tyler Technologies in this month's newsletter, where they will highlight his routing ability, which has led to us and our partners at Zoom having routes to run that are on time. And I won't blow their exciting news, but they'll tell you how many of those routes are on time. So we're excited about that.
Congratulations, Walt.
Next, I want to thank Heather Jameson. She's our Assistant Director of Transportation. Heather is the yin to our yang. She can handle the most difficult situation or individual. No matter how mad they are, she can de-escalate like no one I have ever seen. So we are very thankful to have her on board. And she hadn't had a lot to argue about this year with people. I mean, this has just been a good year for us for transportation. So her skills are still put to good use because, you know, we always work through issues that we have. We're not perfect, but we have them. Next, I want to thank our central office staff. If you'll remember at the beginning of this year, and I always say this, the opening of school is always chaotic. It's organized chaos. And our central office staff, we had several that I want to make sure, and I want to miss somebody, so I'm just going to say central office staff. They came up, they helped our transportation team and our new partners with Zoom work through those opening day jitters and things. And so thanks to them. Next, our transportation work group. This group spent hours and hours over the last few years, and we haven't given them a whole lot of work this year, but they still meet. We canceled our last meeting because we had some issues pop up that we had to deal with outside of transportation, but they have done a great job of giving us ideas and working through some issues that led us to such a great presentation tonight. Last, I want to make sure that I thank our parents and our school-based staff. Remember, we changed the schedule, and that is not easy, being a parent or a guardian, to have to change your schedule. So tremendous effort by our parents and our guardians to step up, and tremendous effort by our school staff, because that schedule change affected them as well, and they had to work through that. So we are very grateful for that and what they have done to help facilitate this turnaround in transportation. So now let me introduce you to a few people at Zoom before I turn it over to Sarah Skinner, who I will introduce last. But first, Liz Sanchez, she is the Executive Vice President for Zoom Services. Richard Lindell, he is the Regional Manager. John Gray, he is moving. He was our current general, or was our general manager, but he's moving on to Howard County, Maryland.
I don't know whether to clap or not. Great.
Our new general manager, Ravi Petro. Our operations manager, Mark Wanagar. Ellen Sullivan, our safety supervisor. Gary Bogus, our shop manager. Now, Sarah Skinner is the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships for Zoom, and she was with us when we started down this path. And if you remember back last year, we were having a rough time with transportation. So she stepped in and answered all of your questions. So tonight, I get to give her the opportunity to come up and share with you the good news about what has went on. And all those people that I've already thanked, are part of this. And so without further ado, Sarah Skinner, the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships.
Good evening.
Good
And
evening.
thank you so much for creating this opportunity for us to be here. We are really thrilled to be partners with Roanoke City Public Schools, and it's an honor to get to share some of the highlights from this past year. But it really has been a true privilege to be able to provide safe, reliable, efficient, and effective transportation services for your students, your families, your schools, and the community. So for today, we were going to share some highlights on performance to date, some of the feedback we've received as it relates to customer service and the technology, and then we really wanted to recognize the local team as well as the partnership as a whole. We'll be brief, I promise, but really excited to share. When last we met, it was probably just before the start of school, and there was a lot of eagerness, maybe some apprehension, some concern about launch. But from the data today, there's real highlights to celebrate. 100% coverage of all routes since day one. We have 0 driver shortage, which I know is something that you haven't been able to say in a while. So proud of. A brand new fleet of buses, all with AC on all the buses. And I know that's been a huge celebration for students and for the schools who recognize that when students arrive on time and cool and safe, that it has an impact on their day in the classroom every day. And we are committed to delivering exceptional service and partnership, not just this year, but each year going forward. We always say internally, we're only as good as our last ride. So we're committed to continuing the same level of service excellence. Current on-time performance is on average 98%. Which is awesome. That means kids are getting to school on time, in time for breakfast, in time to arrive for front loading and good instruction, and that's super important to us, and we know it is to you as well. We've delivered over 482,000 miles, and average parent rating is 4.9 out of 5 stars. So we dig into all of the feedback, as I shared with you back in August. Any rating below a 4 out of 5 stars, our team gets a ping and we'll find out what happened, investigate to figure out how we can make it right. But your parents have over 10,963 5-star ratings, and that's a really high level of adoption and a high level of engagement within the platform, and certainly something to celebrate. On our side, we view this as a sign that parents are experiencing improved safety, transparency, communication, and hopefully you're feeling that and hearing that on your side as well. So a few quotes or highlights we wanted to share as it relates to feedback on the technology and customer service. I won't read through all of them, but some great reviews from parents, school administrators, and your team as well. We're grateful for all the feedback we're getting, and we hope you keep it coming. And then last but not least, I wanted to celebrate our amazing local team and operations team. At Zoom, we pride ourselves on culture and really investing in our people. One of the things that's enabled us to reach 0 driver shortages is training and recruiting, but also celebrating the amazing drivers who serve your students each day. Some of those folks are in the room with us today. We obviously didn't bring every driver, but I really wanted to recognize the folks that make this work possible. And I wanted to thank you all for your partnership and your commitment to this work. That's all I have.
Now, I do want to add, we didn't think someone could be here, but Amy Gladden is in the room. And I want to take a moment just to explain what Amy does for us. Amy is our lead dispatcher at Zoom. She controls every driver and aide in the entire city when we are going to and from school, midday runs, all the way up until 7:30, 8 o'clock at night with our activity runs.
Wow.
So, Amy, you need to stand up. We'll take any questions that the board may have.
Are there any questions this evening?
Question, just a comment. Thank you. Thank you for making us feel comfortable with having our kids in your buses. My daughter takes the bus every day, and I can surely tell you it's on time every day. So thank you. Great job. Amazing.
Mr. Link?
Thank you. I'm a parent. The bus is there every day on time. Thank you.
Jerry?
Well, it's good to see Mr. Perkins starting a presentation with a bright smile. But this is definitely a part of that organizational discipline piece, doing exactly what we say we're going to do. So, you know, I appreciate all the hard work, and I appreciate and love the results. So let's keep at it. And I guess the big thing now, let's just be consistent, and I think we're gonna be all right.
Thank you. Watkins.
We were a tough crowd when we first met you.
Yeah.
I was probably the toughest. I just want to thank you so much. You were up for the challenge, and you looked me straight in my eye and said, "We got this." So, and you did, and I just want to thank you so much.
I definitely want to thank you as a parent as well. My son, even if the bus is late, I know what time the bus is going to arrive, and he knows what time to get out the house and down the hill and up another hill. I love that the bus drivers know the children. And even with the activity bus, because he's in sports, he's dropped off in front of the house. They wave, they're very friendly. And it's great to see bus drivers and students actually coming together, knowing each other, and having a relationship. I think that means a lot. Thank you.
Fire.
I echo everything else that's been said. I know in the beginning of the year it was like an extremely tough time, just with like the concerns with last year. So I just like to thank you for all your efforts and like also just being super consistent as well. So thank you.
Thank you all.
Ms. Eta.
I also want to appreciate, thank you for coming back. I know when we started this, we said, you said, and we'll be back, and you can hold us accountable, and that is us doing our job as a board, and we can see the results there. So thank you for the work. And yes, I'm responsible for a bunch of those 5-star ratings also, because my kids also take the bus. So it's been a wonderful turnaround this year.
I really have nothing to add other than the praise and the thanks to all of you here as well. And the only thing that I would correct is the way we knew you were doing a great job is we heard nothing. We don't hear that they're happy, but we heard nothing, and that made me happy.
That means everything.
So thank you so much for living up to your word. Really, that means a lot in a partnership with us. We couldn't have asked for a better turnout.
And I have one more comment. I love that if it's a substitute, it's updated. You know what your driver looks like, and you know who's coming to pick up your child. And what's the lady's name that's in charge of that? Amy? Amy, thank you, because you got a job on your hands, and you're doing an amazing job. Thank you.
Ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, no, that's a really important point, that even a substitute driver that can greet the students by name and has all the
Yes.
same information to ensure safe transport. So that's great.
And thank you for being here. Thank you all.
Yes,
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you, and I just want to say thank you as well to you, Ms. Skinner, and to the team. I also want to say thank you to Mr. Perkins and to the entire transportation team. Again, this is a collaborative effort, and I just want to thank you for your hard work, your attention to detail, because all of those minutes matter, and where students are, that matters, and for us to get our kids to school and get home on time matters a great deal. So thank you for all of your hard work.
Absolutely.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, Dr. White.
And Mr. Perkins, I'm going to put you on the spot for another topic, not transportation, but something that, I'm sorry, but, and he doesn't know that I'm going to do this, but Mr. Cherry had an opportunity to join us this morning for a press conference that we had to talk about solar futures. And so would you like to deliver that good news?
Please. Oh, absolutely. Madam Chair, Vice Chair, members of the board. This morning, we conducted a press conference where we introduced our Solar Futures, who is our partner in clean and reusable energy. We have slated 17 buildings in our school district that will receive solar power, and we are working through power purchase agreements to save the district over the next 35 years approximately $46.5 million. We will also save in our capital improvement plan because $13.2 million will be saved in roof renovations where we will have roofing taken care of as we work through these projects that will have 25-year warranties. So that's another cost savings. We have also introduced this to the city. We've asked if they were interested in the Berglund Center, so we're excited about that as well. Hopefully the city will take advantage of that cost savings as well. And the last thing, and last but certainly not least, we were presented with a check for $150,000
Whoa.
to be used toward education in our career and technical education for students, and the opportunity to actually work on installing solar energy with our electricians. And our teachers will receive 20 of those students. So this is a great opportunity. Our science department, Tom Fitzpatrick, is excited because he'll get to use that in his, we'll use that money also to help us with our science, our STEM, and we will also use that in our CTE program with Miss Duncan and her teams.
Yes.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
amazing.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So sorry to put you on the spot like that.
You're talking about preparing our students for the jobs of the future. You can interrupt your
Yes.
presentation
Yeah.
anytime.
Yeah.
Well, and we're just so grateful for that partnership with Solar Futures, and thank you, Mr. Morning. And again, this is what we mean by graduating our kids with a diploma and a resume of skills and experiences that will last them a lifetime, and they'll have jobs if they want them at the end of their experience. So we're just really proud of that partnership.
That is so exciting.
That's awesome.
So now on to curriculum and instruction. I'll ask Dr. Williams and Dr. Durham if they'll come forward to really talk about the textbook adoption process. So Dr. Williams, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. Madam Chair, Vice Chair, Board members, Student Representative, and Dr. White, we thank you for this opportunity to give you an update on the spring 2025 textbook adoption process. Okay. So you might be wondering why. Why now? Well, our state has approved new state standards in English, in math, and in history. So as the state approves new standards, we want to make sure that our textbooks align up with those expectations. More importantly, we want our teachers to have those high-quality instructional materials in their hands and to take some of that lift as far as alignment with our state standards, and ultimately to support our students, to give them access to the content that they need. So the how, well, our how is really rooted in our policy, because our policy tells us what we need to do in this process. We set up evaluation committees to review the materials. We make sure that parents have access, that community members have access, and we create procedures and opportunities for input, and we try to be very transparent about the criteria and the process. And I just want to take a minute just to say thank you to everybody that's helped this spring, because it is time consuming. We had hundreds of teachers, we had assistant principals, community members, we had board members reviewing materials, and it really means a lot because they actually came in person to the annex, but they also had access to the materials online. So it takes time, and we just appreciate that commitment. We did upload their names into board docs so that you can see by name and by role and by school who served on all of our committees. Also, we know that this is a heavy lift for our teachers. You know, along with having new standards in English, in math, and history, it's a heavy lift learning all of that, especially if you think about if you're an elementary school teacher and you teach all subjects. You know, it's a task, it's a daunting task. So what our division team wants to do is take some of that lift off and make sure that before we leave for summer that teachers have information and that we hold sessions for them. And then over the summer, we'll have in-person sessions and some virtual opportunities. And then of course in August and throughout next year, we want to make sure that we provide that support for our teachers and all of our school staff and our leaders.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board, Dr. White, thank you. This evening, I'm going to share with you our updates with our textbook adoption for math, social studies, and English. So for elementary math, we had 13 committee members comprised of teachers, math specialists, instructional coaches, and we reviewed all of the BDOE opportunities and the textbooks that they provided. The resources that we decided best met our needs of our teachers and our students here in Roanoke City Public Schools are the current resources that we have. We're going to continue using our Roanoke City Public Schools instructional toolkit, and those are those units of study that we get from Hampton. So we're going to continue using those. They're pretty robust, and we like that. We're going to continue using Zern, which is a state-provided instructional technology tool that we're using for remediation and for direct instruction with our students. And we're also going to purchase Exemplars, which is a product that we're using with our students to do hands-on application performance-based math, where they can learn the math, but then they apply it, and it's not online. It's actual hands-on projects and building. So those are the things we're going to use for elementary, and we feel like these things will help our teachers and our students to reach mastery in elementary math. We are currently in the process of looking at our secondary math and what we're going to be doing for that. We are meeting right now about that. We have 27 committee members who are reviewing the math materials for secondary. The division committee has started to meet and starting to look at all of those resources available. We are currently conducting a community review. You're welcome to go right upstairs and look at the resources right now in one of our conference room and to review that. So we have all of those materials available, and we should have a decision and all of that feedback around April 29th. And the committee is going to reconvene, look at the feedback that we get from our teachers in the committee and from the community, and make a final selection for math, secondary math. And this is what, thank you, Ms. Mitzel. She shared out all of this information for our review so that public knew that we were doing this review and had opportunities to come and give their opinions. Social studies, we are going to adopt a K-4 social studies book. We have 14 committee members on this committee, and it's comprised of teachers, instructional coaches, principals, the supervisor of social studies, and there's only one choice from the VDOE that is approved. But we reviewed it and made sure it worked. We want to make sure it aligns. So our committee found that it does align. It is the book from Five Ponds Press. And we were excited about the Five Ponds Press book because we use the Five Ponds Press book in science. So the formatting's very similar. It's very, so teachers will have an easier time transitioning straight to that Five Ponds Press book in social studies. So we are excited about adopting that for social studies. And we also did the same committee review and community review for social studies, and opened that up for our public to review that resource as well. Are there any questions about math and social studies?
Are there any questions?
Actually, so I remember you mentioned the exemplar or XML. I can't remember exactly.
Exemplars?
Oh yes.
Yes.
So is that for first and secondary math, or is that just for like?
That is for elementary math for right now. Yes.
Is there like a version that like could possibly be for like secondary math? Because I know like when it comes to like higher level math, a lot
I'm
of
going to defer to Mr. Barris, our math coordinator. Is there a secondary version of exemplars?
Actually, the program about
Come up
secondary.
here. Yeah.
So what we're using for middle school math, the Zern program does include many of those tasks in there. For high school, the programs that we're looking at between EDIA and MathSpace, kind of the finalists, those include some of those performance-based tasks.
Okay, that's something I just wanted to compliment, because like I know for like higher level math, a lot of it's like seen as more like theoretical. So like for students, a lot of the time when they learn it, it's like, what am I learning this for if I can't really use it in like a job or workplace? So that's something I like to compliment. So thank you.
What? Okay. I think we have no more questions. Thank you for all your hard work.
Yes.
Thank you. Dr. Williams, don't go that far, or Dr. Durham, because I want you to present the K-5 English Language Arts textbook adoption for the school board's approval.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Dr. White, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair. We're bringing to you today the ELA K-5 core program adoption process, and I wanted to give you the updates on where we are and what our committee is recommending for us to adopt this evening. So we had 97 committee members give us some feedback on our ELA adoption. That's amazing. We had reading specialists, teachers, instructional coaches, mentors, principals, everybody. We had community members. Some of you guys actually showed up and gave your support and your feedback. We really appreciate that. Then we conducted our community review March 10th through the 21st, and we reviewed all of our materials there in the annex. You can see some pictures there. It was really awesome. And Ms. Floyd and her team, thank you for organizing that. Like Dr. Williams said earlier, that was a heavy lift. So we appreciate that. And we did conduct that Those are the dates that we conducted all of that. And during this review process, we provided evaluation documents for all of the reviewers, and they were correlated to our standards of learning. And they're also correlated and provided the VLP, Virginia Literacy Partnership ratings checklist, so that the reviewers could see how the textbook aligned to our SOLs and aligned to the VLA, the Virginia Literacy Act, and the approval that the VLP gave each book. We reviewed 3 core programs: Imagine Learning, Bookworms, and Core Knowledge Language Arts, sometimes known as CKLA. We also looked at writing, digital access, implementation support that went along with the program to see how that's kind of supplemented each program as well. So based on the reviews, and the division committee recommends that we do adopt Imagine Learning. The 97 reviews came back and all the feedback, and that was the one that rose to the top. And we really like Imagine Learning, EL education, because it does include that real world reading materials, that authentic literacy that we are proponents of here in Roanoke City. It provides opportunities for students to write about what they read and to back up their ideas with examples. It gives us a robust classroom library that our students can get books in their hands, and we're reading real world topics, and it's not made up stuff. It's things that kids can go straight from the classroom to the library and find even more information about. So we really like that real world connection. So we are recommending this evening, it is going to be an estimated cost of about $2 million, $2 to $2.1 million. That does include our professional learning that we'll receive from the company, and it will be a 5-year adoption. And this is an approved core content by the VLP, so we will be just fine, and we are excited about that. And it is recommended that we vote to approve the adoption of Imagine Learning EL education as the K-5 core EL program from 2025 to 2030. And I'll open for questions, and Ms. Floyd's here as well for questions.
Good. Are there any questions from the board at this time? Mr. Link?
When you're reviewing the 3, I'm going to use the wrong words, but the 3 different programs that you were reviewing, do the publishers provide approximately the same amount of information, or are you getting different amount of materials from each publisher, and how do you reconcile that in the decision-making process?
We open it up basically to everybody. This is what we're doing. We're reviewing. You send us what you want us to review. We've actually set up time to meet with publishers. I was talking with Ms. Floyd earlier. We had a publisher who kind of gave a little bit, and then we went back and said, hey, you know, others are out performing and giving lots more, so would you like to send some more? So it's up to the publisher to what they send to us. But we let it know we're doing the review, send us what you want, and it's up to them.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Yes, absolutely.
How are they priced comparatively?
Priced comparatively?
I mean, were they all approximately 2 to 2.1 million, or was there wide?
I don't know the answer to that because I don't know. Do we know that? We didn't consider price when we were looking into it. We were looking at the reviewers' alignment to standards. We were looking at the VLP ratings, and we didn't really look into price until those rose to the top. I can find that out for you if you like. Absolutely.
And just so that the board is aware, and just reminded, I'm sure that you know, that this was not an expense that we had planned on previously, but because of the change in the standards and because of the alignment with the state standards, that this was something that we had to fund. So I just wanted to remind the school board that this is an expense that we're finding in this year's budget in order to cover that expense.
Of schedule.
Ahead of schedule, yes, it's 1 year ahead of schedule.
I would like, thank you for all of your hard work. This will require a motion and a second. Before I request that, I would like to comment that I really appreciate the clear involvement of the community, experts, as well as those who will be receiving the books and anybody who wants to see it. So thank you for making that, really pushing that out. That is a really good process that we certainly appreciate. So is there a motion and a second to approve the adoption of Imagine Learning, English Learner, EL Education as the K-5 Core ELA program for 2025-2030 as presented?
So move.
Moved by Ms. Quintana.
Second.
Second by Mr. Cherry. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we have a new curriculum. Thank you.
Good. And Dr. Williams, it's like the Dr. Williams show.
It's always got the Dr. Williams show. That's
Well,
nice.
it's Dr. Williams and Mr. McKee will be our backup tonight. So we promised the board and the public an update on our elementary Spanish program. So we want to make good on that promise. And so just let us know where we are so far. So Dr. Williams, I'll turn it back over to you.
So thank you again for this opportunity. We had held several informational meetings with our elementary Spanish teachers, but we just wanted to hold a listening session just so that all of our 13 teachers could share their thoughts, their concerns, and possible solutions, because we're all working together to try to continue programs and to do the best that we can. So it was really important that we held the listening sessions. We held the teacher listening session on April 9th, and I was just going to read through a few highlights from that, from our notes. General comments from them were about their contract status, and application requirements, if they could remain at their home schools, also if other budget cuts were considered. We talked about some instructional models and materials for ELs, and the possibility of even maintaining, if we couldn't have the entire program for all K-5, at least have it for some grade levels. And their concerns were that it was very stressful, the uncertainty, it was difficult preparing for the praxis tests, and it also was a personal impact on their lives because of the stress. They were concerned about placement and hiring, and they just wanted to make sure that they had a place, and they wanted to continue serving Roanoke City Public Schools. They were concerned about communication, and there was some confusion, and they also wanted to make sure that the tenure and seniority was considered in the process. The suggestions and solutions were additional support to pass the praxis tests, allowing them more time, transition support if they move from elementary Spanish into the EL position, also hiring and placement, making sure that they had a position if they were moved, if we transferred the elementary Spanish teachers into the ELS position. Also possible licensure pathways, and really offering a clear, hopeful plan for the future and additional communication. So those were some common discussion points and themes from our time together. We also had a parent listening session on April 10th, and we had great discussions. We just wanted to listen to their comments and possible solutions. We had also received about 9 emails from other parents, so I kind of put the emails and our discussions together as to share with you. So the general comments from the parents were they emphasize the academic and cognitive benefits of early second language acquisition, and citing research and just the overall benefit to our elementary students having this access early. The questions were raised about if we looked at an app-based language learning program, how that would support our students and how they would navigate that, especially if they needed extra help. Multiple parents shared that the in-person Spanish instruction is effective with visible progress in their children's fluency. They were very complimentary of the program and, of course, wanted to keep it. Some parents did note a balance between priorities, such as making sure that their students they were gaining reading comprehension in English, versus acquiring a second language. They had a couple suggestions and solutions. The first, and most importantly, our parents said they wanted to maintain the Spanish instruction, especially given its value and impact already observed by families. They didn't want to replace the in-person Spanish instruction with an app-based program. And they did offer that if we were looking at reducing the program, that if we could see if there was a hybrid option, not to get rid of the program in its entirety. So they were very sincere, and we really appreciate the discussions and the feedback, and we wanted to make sure that you knew that.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board, Dr. White, student representatives. Just want to talk about the people portion of it at this time. So we will be communicating with our Spanish elementary teachers after the board meeting. We want to give them a rundown of what we've done since February. And in terms of vacancies, we're looking at about, of course, you know that we're adding 40 new EL positions. So we want to make sure we hold at least 9 EL positions for our Spanish teachers, just in case, because we won't know any decisions until the middle of May in regards to once the city votes on their budget. We also will add, the VDOE's reached out and they're going to add some sessions for the praxis test in June that we will pay for as a division for each of our Spanish teachers if they choose to use that. So we're putting things in place to ensure that we heard all of their concerns. We heard the parents' concerns. We want to make sure we make this transition as seamless as possible. And also for our Spanish teachers, if we are looking at that, they would have to pass the praxis by, the ESOL practice by August 15th. So make sure we get the support in place they need by that time, so that once school starts, they will have that add-on endorsement. And in addition to that, we want to ensure that they do have a contract. So if you guys vote yes on the personnel report tonight, they will receive a contract and it'll say TBD until we can figure out exactly where we will put them for next year. But we just want to try to ease their worries and their concerns to ensure that every elementary Spanish teacher, whether you're provisional or tenured, that you have a position with Roanoke City Public Schools. So with that being said, just want to open up, see if you guys have any questions for us.
I would just, before we go to questions, I would just like to remind the public that these 40 positions weren't because we randomly added them. This was a requirement, which is, we've been working towards, which is good news. We just hoped we could phase them in over time. And as we all know on the board, a reminder that the state funds only 1% of each of those positions that they mandate that we make. This was not a choice that we had. So this is us adjusting. So are there questions from the board? Yes, Ms. Watkins.
How did you land on holding 9 positions? rather
Because
than
of
13?
the 13 Spanish teachers, 9 are not provisional teachers, so they qualify for the add-on endorsement.
Okay.
The other 4 are provisional teachers.
Okay.
So they don't qualify for the add-on endorsement, so we'll have to make sure that we find a position for them within the division. So that's why we came to 9. Their biggest concern was, will I have a position? Where will it be? You'll have a position, we just don't know where it be. We make sure we communicate with the principals to hold 9 of those EL positions until we can figure out exactly which way we need to go.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other questions?
I was just gonna say, I do appreciate the fact that we took some intentional time to hear from our staff, because I believe our last meeting, there were a lot of concern with this program. So that was my biggest piece, is just making sure we take the time out to be intentional about hearing from them, not just in the board meeting, but beyond the board meeting, kind of calling to action. So I appreciate having this plan put in place. So I just want to say thank you for that, because that was a big concern for me.
Any other questions?
I think I have one.
Okay.
Of the 13 Spanish teachers that we have now that are assets of the school district or division, is there any concern that we'll be losing any of them to this transition, or do we think we're going to be able to retain all of them?
I can't answer that for certain, because the biggest thing they want to know is, will they get a contract? Where will they be? We won't know. Contracts are set to go out later on this week, and they're due back by May 2nd. So by that time, we will know who's coming back and who's not. But we would hope that they would all come back.
I guess I meant, are any of the teachers unhappy with the process so far? Or if we're able, maybe you can't answer this either, but
Well,
if we're able to offer a contract for all of them, do we think we'll be able to keep them?
I can't answer for certain, but our hope is that they will accept and sign the contract by May 2nd. The biggest thing they want to know is, will they get a contract, will they have a job, and where will they be? We can answer 2 of the 3 questions at this point, but come middle of May, we'll be able to answer that 3rd question as well. And hopefully all 13 and all 1,165 teachers will sign the contracts to come back.
I'll just say that studying teacher attrition,
yes,
that I can tell you that whenever there's uncertainty, then there's more of a likelihood for turnover. And so we want our teachers here in Roanoke City
Yes.
Public Schools.
Yes.
And what we can tout especially as an urban school division that we're proud of, is that statistically speaking, we don't have a teacher shortage right now. But when there's uncertainty with programming, uncertainty with the budget, uncertainty with contracts or those kinds of things, yeah, it's more likely that teachers will choose to go someplace else. We don't want that to be our story. And so we've said to our Spanish teachers, you will have a position and we want you here.
Okay.
And so we've been really clear about that. And we're hoping that with the approval of the contracts, hopefully tonight, that we can issue their contracts and hopefully we can kind of get some clarity pretty soon on the direction so that we'll have stability in that area and all other areas as well.
And Mr. McKee, I'm about to make some words, correct me when I go wrong. Just as a reminder to the public and anybody who may not realize, we reissue contracts every year to all of our employees.
Yes, we do.
This is a process that we go through every year. We issue the contracts, and there's a period of time. Our faculty, staff, everybody receives a contract, has a period of time to decide if they're returning. So, Mr. Link, every year, we're in the state of, okay, please.
Yes.
From here until contracts come in, we're like, okay, here. And then Mr. McKee and his staff go to very hard work for anybody who says no, thank you.
Yes.
But we work very hard. It's the reason we have worked so hard on creating competitive pay packages for the region, as well as creating a culture that they want to be a part of. And it's hard. This is hard news.
Sure.
Right? We didn't, regardless of other conditions, finding 40 EL teachers in a world where there are still teacher shortages is an uphill climb, regardless of other circumstances. So these are just really challenging conditions. So we haven't actually said that out loud in a long time on the board, so I thought I would take a minute while the fact checker could.
Can I
correct
just
me.
add, we have 48 EL teachers right now, and we're adding 40 on top of that.
Oh, yeah,
So,
sure.
It is quite a challenge, but we're up to it.
Yeah, yes, and we have every confidence in you.
You know,
So you have a
I
remarkable
want to
team.
say something.
Yes.
Thank you so much for at least, I hope our teachers felt heard and know that we really want them to stay. And thank you for making it a point to having these sessions with them and the parents, because I hope I know you guys transmitted that we want you to stay, we care. We're all in the same boat.
Yes. Ms. Drake.
I'm not sure if it's possible, if this question even will make sense, but is there a way that we could savor maybe a few teachers in the elementary level and they double up on schools, like kind of how art does? That they may go to different schools to cover some type of Spanish at the elementary level?
We are looking at that. But that is one of the many plans that we are looking
Okay.
at, but we can't
Okay.
go into
Sorry.
detail at this point.
Yeah, I think the pause that you hear is because it's complicated. When it comes to scheduling, when it comes to it depends on the student body, so that, and the programming that we already have in place and whether or not that has to shift. So there's no easy yes to your answer.
Right.
So that's the pause.
It makes sense.
That-
Because it took me a minute to even get the question
Yes.
together, because I was like, how do I ask this?
And I
Okay.
would say, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, when those kinds of opportunities have emerged, it's often after the contracts come back.
Okay.
So we at least have one peg in the peg board, so we know what to maneuver around.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You look like you're deep in thought. No? Okay.
Well, okay, fine.
So yes.
I guess, I'm guessing that Ms. Trigg and I, our heads are maybe in the same place, that my biggest concern for asking about whether we're going to keep these teachers, which I know you can't answer, but the idea that we've got this new standard that we're absorbing and dealing with, and we have to solve a staffing problem of 40 new teachers. But I guess where my head was at is that if we can keep those teachers and that experience and that knowledge here, that doesn't mean that the Spanish the Spanish language program is maybe at worst getting a pause and not an axe for some future instructional year in the future, if we can smooth out the wrinkles.
That becomes a budgetary question.
Correct. Sure. Sure.
So we hope so.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
That's right.
Hoping.
We hope so.
Hoping.
We hope so.
Hoping.
Yes.
Can I just add one more plug? We have a job fair this Saturday at William Fleming High School from 9 to 11. Everybody's welcome to come. And all you current employees, we have a $500 referral bonus, so please refer individuals to come to job fair. And we're looking to hire for the 25-26 school year. So
That's right, Mr.
that's my plug.
That's right.
Every opportunity is a recruitment opportunity.
That's right. And I would add, if you have never been to one of our job fairs, it is kind of a remarkable thing to see. It's all hands on deck. There is a lot of activity. It's exciting. There's a lot of very excited people. It's an interesting thing to attend. So
Indeed. All right, well, thank you so much, Mr. McKee. Don't go
Thank you.
far because you're up next. Now we're going to bring to you the reappointment list and personnel list for the school board's approval. So, Mr. McKee, right over.
Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board, Dr. White, student representative. I'd like to bring to you our reappointment list of our administrators, our professional staff, and our classified staff for the 25-26 school year. I ask that you, I bring it to you.
very good. Is there a motion and a second to approve the personnel list as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Cherry, seconded by Ms. Apel. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, go get us some teachers.
We're on it. Thank you.
Mr. McKee, thank you also for, to you and to your team for all the hard work you do in human resources to make sure that we have people for our people, all right? We're in a people business, so I just want to say thank you for that. I'll now ask Dr. Siebert, our Constituent Services and Government Relations Officer, to provide an update on first reading on several policy updates. So Dr. Siebert, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. White, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the board. You have at your place this packet, if you could find this little bound spiral. And huge thanks to Kim Tresky and the print shop for putting this together for you. All these are in board docs, but rather than clicking on individual PDF links, this makes it a reference that you can take with you. This is first review. Also, a huge thanks to the entire team. These policy updates touch all the departments in various ways, and it's a real privilege to work with the folks to do that. So tonight, what you have is the spring policy update. Largely driven by VSBA. The spring policy update is their housekeeping update. This is part of the review of your policies on a 5-year schedule to help keep you on track for that. Your summer update is where you get all the Code of Virginia changes. You have approximately 35 policies and regulations. You can, in fact, adopt regulations on one reading, but we're proposing to bring them all back to you at the next board meeting. Of the 35 there, about 70% of them are just VSBA copyrights, or in this case, 7 of them the team is moving from a local policy to a VSBA copyright, and that just puts us on a firm ground. We have about 11 others that I will touch upon very briefly. This is your first review. Your Policy Governance Legislative Committee has already taken a deep dive, so special thanks to board members Quintana and Link for participating in that. Many of them you see the words clarity, cross-reference, legal reference. The clarity piece is VSBA has a new board attorney, and so Leslie's putting her clarity on some things. So we can expect for over the next 5 years a lot of just kind of language wordsmithing to kind of suit. So you have 3 pages that list the policies, and I just want to touch on not all 35 of them. BBBB is your student representatives to the school board. If you just looked at the policy, like we're deleting lots of stuff. But no, this is one that we're moving to the VSBA model, and we're moving all the local work you did as you built this process into a regulation. So all that is there, it still captures regulation, but the plus there is as your new committee works and you work through the process, if you want to tweak that process, you could do that in one meeting versus a bigger process. That's good. I'm going to touch on GBLA. GBLA is a longstanding policy called third-party complaints against board employees. And what VSBA has done here is stipulated that there should be some SUPES regulations to implement that. So we've already drafted those, and really that's because between your HR office, your employee relations person, also my office, constituent services, will be the anchors for any of those complaints that come in. Basically, people could have 2 routes to go, and we have that drafted. I do want to head over to page 3. On page 3, you see we actually have a couple policies being deleted. It's always, with all the things being added, I always celebrate when something gets deleted. But they're being deleted because, for example, you're at the top of that page, remediation recovery program. That is now more than picked up in your Virginia Literacy Act policies and your mediation policies, so that all those supports still exist other places. In the middle of page 3, JJAC, student athletes concussions. This is one of the code provisions from a number of years ago that required a policy, but where most of your policy had to be reviewed every 5 years, this policy has to be reviewed every 2 years. So that 2-year review has been complete. Similarly, just under that JM, restraint and seclusion, and JMSR below that, which is actually a SUPES reg, that's required to be reviewed annually. And so the team, the teams have looked at those, and no changes are recommended at this time. Moving over to page 4 is where we do get into some of the local policies that we want to lift up for you. At the top of the page there were a number of policies that were reviewed that required no change, and some that were only cross-reference changes that your clerk can go ahead and do. So the first one we have for you is BFC. This is the policy on policy adoption. And what we're recommending for your consideration here, we encourage you to take a look at it, is some new language to empower the clerk. Considering that we are expecting over the next 5 years the new VSBA board attorney will be doing a lot of wordsmithing, we wanted to have a mechanism to try to look at how could we implement some of those policies quickly if they were not substantive. Now, the Policy Governance Legislative Committee had a really good question. Well, who determines what's substantive or not? And our decision was that, well, the Policy Governance Legislative Committee would be. So what we would do moving forward is we have like non-substantive changes, but just kind of wordsmithing. We would invite the Policy Governance Legislative Committee to look at those first, and if they agree that it was not substantive, they would authorize the clerk to go ahead and make those changes. That way, rather than bringing you 70 policies here in June, hopefully it'll be something less. We don't know
That's
yet.
my favorite policy then.
The less is more approach. Okay, thank you. We had, on the middle of that page, GBEA-BR, we need you to strike that from your list, GBEA-BR. This is a not yet, because this was really good work from Mr. Collins, your attorney, working with HR, wanting to lift up. We have lots of standard operating procedures about our drug alcohol-free workplace that Jill Jeter and her team have in operations. The goal here is to move those into a board regulation to make them more featured, but also build out supports and things that are there. So Mr. Collins has brought in some samples from other school divisions, and Jennifer Bailey's working hard on that. So that is not here tonight. If we have it for the next one, we'll give it to you as a handout, but we might pick it up in summertime. So that is a not yet. IKG is one that we're deleting. It's called independent study, and this is a vestige of an old policy about where kids could do things on their own. That's now fully built out in the code and other VSBA policies, and it's about alternative paths to attaining credit. The idea there's many ways children can attain credit. Independent study might be one of those. And then lastly, for your consideration, we'd invite you to look at and think about between now and next meeting, a new pair of policies, JAD, KAD. The reason it's double is so it's in the community section as well as the student section. And you have policies everywhere that talk about how there's remedies. So you can appeal this decision for where your bus stop is. You can appeal, we can look at, we have an issue with instructional materials. And so this is a recommendation we had for the committee and we have for the board, that you have a governing policy for appeals saying that, yes, the board considers appeals. However, that if the policy says how it should be handled, that the policy will rule. Also, unless the policy specifically says that there's a formal process for the board, this policy approach, this new policy makes it clear that unless there's a full process, the board consider any future appeals just on the record. And so that all those things are built out there. Now, again, the Policy Governance Legislative Committee looked at this for a long period of time and talked a lot about it and came up with the following recommendations that are listed there. One, that yes, the board adopt this approach, kind of knitting things together, giving an umbrella. Two, that this and other related policies should be highlighted in the parent handbook for the new school year. And then, really that the mechanism for getting to your appeals is already established in the RCPS approach to addressing questions and concerns. And so the idea of the committee was that could become a SUPS regulation implementing this policy. So those are the first readings we have. Happy to answer any questions. We also invite you to take a look. If you have any corrections, ideas, concerns, if you could get them to the clerk by May 2nd, that would help us as we prepare for adoption at your next meeting.
Dr. Siebert, before I ask the board if they have additional questions, would you just take a minute just for anybody who may be confused by the language to explain the difference between a policy, a board reg, and a SUP reg?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So if you think about laws and codes and versus regulations, the board's policy manuals are the laws of the school division. To change a law of the school division, a policy, you have to have two readings. You have to have a first reading, a second. So it basically takes two meetings. There is a provision, if there's ever an emergency, the board could unanimously declare an emergency and adopt a policy. But the idea is that policy should be very thoughtful, put out, looked at, reviewed, talked about extensively. Regulations generally implement them. And there's two types of regulations Dr. Jamison just pointed out. The board regulation is where the board actually adopts the reg that implements it, but the board has the flexibility of amending that in any one meeting on first review. And then the others are much more operational, and those become the SUPS regulations. And really, Dr. White has the privilege of both SUPS regulations that are in the policy manual, but also then her chiefs have standard operating procedures. And that's where one of the things you're hearing tonight, we're talking about moving some SOPs into the regulatory piece. But it's to make sure that your policy manual is very well reasoned and has ample opportunity for review.
Thank you.
For someone who can express some ignorance, I'm assuming SUPS is an acronym for something.
SR, superintendents.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you very much. So there's BRs, which are board regulations, and there are SRs, which are superintendent's regulations.
And we call them SUPS.
SUPS regulations, or SRs. Yes.
You'll hear
Hey.
about her soups meetings. We're not involved.
Can't wait.
And I don't think they're eating soup. I'm not sure what's
They're not
happening.
eating soup at SUPS
Not
meetings.
eating
You're
soup.
missing a huge opportunity.
But you will hear soups.
I'll make a suggestion, though.
Dr. White, I've lost the class.
You have.
Spring in a school system. Are there any other questions? Thank you for the clarification. Are there any other questions? And thank you to the policy committee for working with you. But this is really helpful. Thank you for
Well,
this.
all the staff and Kim Tresky
Yes.
claps and
Thank
snaps.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Daypel.
And I also for, some of our newer members or audience as well. So when it's a VSBA policy, it's always within our right to say we want to amend it or we don't like it as it is. But the minute we don't use their copyright, we lose the VSBA protections if that policy is ever taken under consideration or questioned by some other party. So when you see copyright VSBA, we are inherent by being a member of VSBA, we are getting certain protections.
Legal
through our-
protections.
Yes.
Like if we're challenged, VSBA picks
Yes,
them.
if we're using their copyright version, there's a challenge, then it's a challenge to all divisions that use that policy, and VSBA is poised. Now, that doesn't mean that 100% of your policy should be VSBA, because no one knows your children and families like you do. And so with the size of our division, et cetera, there are certainly occasions that it's appropriate to have a local policy.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Siebert.
you.
We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
the
Dr.
reading material.
Siebert. All right, thank you. And Madam Chair, next is the 2025-2026 budget update. So I'll ask Mrs. Jackson to come up for an update for the 25-26 budget. But I do want to pause for a moment and just say thank you. I want to say thank you to our school board for your tireless support and for your work. I have said, and I might be a little biased, that we have the best school board, not only in the state, but I believe in the nation, because of your heart, your vision, and your just your questions, your governance, and I just want to say thank you. I also want to say special thank you to you, Dr. Jamison, for your remarks last night during the budget hearing. Thank you. And so I also want to commend our school board for being good fiscal stewards of taxpayers' dollars. Because we have been good stewards, we are so proud that over the past several years, we have achieved many accomplishments. And so I just want to take a moment just to kind of brag on the team a bit and brag on our families and our students. We have maintained a strong graduation rate. We have doubled our CTE seat capacity with the opening of Day Tech, our second CTE center, not to mention our students who complete a 2-year CTE program have a 100% graduation rate. We have increased our AP and dual enrollment participation. We've introduced AVID, which is a college preparation program. We've expanded James Breckenridge Middle School and Morningside Elementary School to ensure that our students have the best learning environments possible. We are looking forward to making good on our promises to finish the new Preston Park Elementary School, so we're looking forward to that. We have invested in early literacy, which is making a difference. This year's data, you recall from your retreat, that we shared that so far, and this year's data shows that fewer elementary students are being identified as high risk for developing reading difficulties. Also, this year's data also shows that discipline incidents and chronic absenteeism have decreased. In fact, I'm pleased to share that the number of out-of-school suspension days has decreased by nearly a third.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's really hats off to our team, to our principals, our teachers, our parents, our students. That's a lot of hard work that has gone into these types of results, and it's good to see that we are on the right track. So again, thank you to our school board for your strong governance. I want to say thank you again to our educators, our principals, and our staff for staying focused, and to our students and families I'm looking at William down there, for being our why. You are our why. I also want to thank City Council, past and present, for their longstanding partnership. All that I just talked about, which is a direct result of strong board governance, would not be possible without the City Council's support of education and their appointment of our incredible school board members. So thank you to them. I also want to thank our principals and leadership team for meeting with me this morning and asking really smart questions about what this all means. And by this, I mean the potential for level funding as well as now the potential for being without our fund balance. I met with them this morning because I always want to be transparent with our team, and I don't want them to hear kind of the rumors here and there. So I do want to be fully transparent. And in the interest of transparency, I will share that there appear to be kind of 3 scenarios before us. So the first is the fully funded kind of scenario, and that is the categorical budget that you've already approved and that we sent to the city in March. The second scenario is level funding, which means that the city would provide us with the same amount of funding that they did this year, leaving us with that $6.7 million, or about a $7 million deficit. And the third scenario is level funding plus the sweeping of our fund balance, or some call it the rainy day fund. So we are looking at those kind of 3 scenarios. So again, in the interest of transparency, I do not know where the rumor originated, or where that, about the sweeping of the fund balance. I don't know where it originated, and I don't know where it is. I just know that there are rumors and kind of whispers swirling, and I hope that they are just that. I hope that they are just rumors. But in running this business, and make no mistake, we are a business, and so we have to look at all of the scenarios. And we're in the business of education being the primary word there, but it is a multi-million-dollar business that we are responsible for. So it's my responsibility as your superintendent to proactively share all of the possibilities that are before us, because at the end of the day, we must protect our classrooms. So we understand that the city is facing budget challenges. So to be good partners, I am proposing that we use our fund balance to bridge that gap for 1 year. which is what the city has requested. Mrs. Jackson will share more about this in a moment, as well as why that's not necessarily a good financial investment over the long term. So we typically don't, I mean, because what we're proposing is really looking at those recurring costs that we try not to, without a fully developed, thought-out plan, we try not to look at those recurring costs using fund balance for those recurring costs, but we know that this is a different time. So, so you'll hear more about that in Mrs. Jackson's report. But I want to be clear that we must continue to talk with and work with our partners at the city, and I'm so happy to see the mayor and Councilman Hagan here as well. So, again, we're committed to those ongoing talks, and we need to continue to do that throughout the next year so that we don't end up in the same position this time next year. So I've asked Mrs. Jackson to share more about this proposal, to review potential cuts again so everyone is aware of what is at stake, and unpack the fund balance, or the rainy day fund, as we sometimes call it, so that everyone has a full understanding of what is and what it is and what it should and should not be used for. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mrs. Jackson.
Hey, thank you very much for that introduction, Dr. White, and good evening, Chair Dr. Jameson, Vice Chair Ms. Apel, members of the board, and community present and online. So we'll jump in, and I wanted to start with kind of, as Dr. White said, where we left off. So I don't know if my presentation is coming.
We can see.
There we go. Okay.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, we see it.
All right.
See it everywhere.
So sort of did you see it everywhere? Okay, I did see it everywhere. There we go. As we left off, kind of the top line here, the revenue and expenditures all in of our general operating needs that we kind of left off with in March, about $273.2 million on the expenditure side, $269 on the revenue side. And then I have some updates of things that we've talked about that kind of came to light since that March meeting. And one of the biggest, of course, being the conclusion of our staffing meetings by our HR team, looking at enrollment projections for all of our schools. And that resulted in the projected need of quite a few additional positions beyond what we have and had budgeted for up to that point. We're also looking at school-based leadership compensation. We have a study going on now that's kind of wrapping up at this point. They've made some recommendations that we're analyzing. So we're looking at ideally making some corrections there, looking at our principals and assistant principals and their pay scales and that sort of thing. So this $400,000 here that you see, it is really a phased-in approach that would require us to do that over 2 to 3 years to keep that cost even down to that level, to make that adjustment. Bringing some special education transitional services in-house. Goodwill is no longer providing those services, so we have the offset of what we formerly paid that community partner to do, so that's not a huge increase there in terms of that offset. And then the big one that we've talked about a little bit, of course, is the overcrowding of our high schools. We've talked about that a lot, sort of in terms of further down the road of how we would address that and the potential of one day possibly being able to add a third high school. But of course, the schools are already overcrowded right now, so that is something that we need to think about and look at the potential of modulars to get us to that point and bridge that gap. On the revenue side, some adjustments, of course, what we presented, as Dr. White just said, we did follow the funding policy as it is currently in place at March to present that needs-based budget, but based on the city's budget, if we are looking at level funding, then we need to make that adjustment. And then we also have a potential reduction of about $1.3 million in state funding. That's based on whether or not the cap on support staff positions will fully go away or not. As I think we've talked about at a previous meeting, The General Assembly did put forward a budget that would ultimately do away with that cap. And for those who may not be familiar, back in the Great Recession, a cap was placed on the number of positions that the state would partially fund for support positions. So even though the standards of quality say you need to have this number of positions in different areas of support, the state put a cap on that and said, we will only fund this certain amount. Over time, they've pulled certain types of positions out from under that cap, but it's still in existence. So the action for the General Assembly this year would ultimately finally do away with that. When the General Assembly's budget went to the governor proposed some amendments, one of which was to reinstate a portion of that cap to reduce the assistance there a bit. The General Assembly did not accept that, so that's good news, but at this point, we still don't have a final state budget. So I don't know that it would be prudent to assume that that won't ultimately go away, because at this point, the budget is with the governor for his review and ultimately either signing or could potentially veto. So that's still up in the air, so that's why you see that there. So with all of those new things, looking at that big dollar amount there for potential modulars, that brings us to a variance of about $18.8 million. So you heard Dr. White talk about the potential for making use of some of our fund balance to kind of cover that difference. Wouldn't be enough to cover that whole difference, but to help us not have to make major cuts in this one year and buy time to make some decisions. So we wanted to spend a little bit of time kind of talking about what is that. I know fund balance is probably not a familiar term for a lot of people. So just want to take a couple of minutes to talk about what are we talking about when we say that and what is that for Roanoke City Schools. So the fund balance is just money that is kind of remaining available to a public entity or a not-for-profit at year end. It's kind of similar to what an individual might have in their savings account. And so our current City Council school funding policy established a set percentage of local revenue that the city would invest in schools annually. And there is state code 22.1-100, which states that unspent school funds at year end revert back to the locality. But our city council decided to keep that set percentage that they spelled out in their policy invested in schools regardless of what year in which those funds were expended. So that allows us to accumulate that fund balance if our revenues exceed expenditures at year end. As part of that agreement, the school board was expected to take on responsibility for financial management of school activities. So just like in personal finances, having that rainy day fund, as we often refer to it, helps us with handling and taking responsibility for fluctuations in funding, unexpected expenses, that sort of thing. I just have a little example on there. If for an individual example, if your car breaks down, maybe it's going to cost $800 to fix it, but you don't get paid for another week or so. If you've got some savings, you can move forward, go ahead and get your car fixed, and you don't have to wait a week or two until your next paycheck to get your car fixed. So that's kind of how that works in terms of public entities having some funds available so that we can move forward sooner rather than later with some fixes or new initiatives that might be needed, and to keep our organization running smoothly. One of the major ways that fund balance supports public entities is in handling cash flow and the timing differences of when different things happen. So we pay our employees twice a month. So that has to happen. Whether or not revenue comes in those months, we got to make sure we make that payroll, pay our bills on time, all of that. So that's a good example of how this assists us. A lot of times revenue doesn't come in with that regularity. All of our federal funds, for example, are on a reimbursement basis. So we're required to move forward with the activities that are funded in advance with local money, and then we can apply for reimbursement out of those grant funds. So that's just one example. And of course, we had quite a bit of that federal grant funding over the last few years, which is now gone. So the examples I have here are just kind of give you a sense of how big those fluctuations can be in a given year. So what I'm reflecting here is just looking at our bank balances, just looking at all in And the biggest variance, the biggest negative variance that we experienced the last couple of years from what our bank balance was on July 1, on the first day of the fiscal year. So last year, for example, that biggest was a little over $12 million. So if we had started from zero on July 1, if we had nothing in the bank, then we would have been overdrawn by $12 million at one point in the year. And of course, we would have been overdrawn a lot more times just by less dollars throughout the year. So that just gives you a sense of how that helps us. And it's important for public entities to have those funds in there so that we can, move forward with our payroll in July and August and September and those first few months when we're not necessarily taking in the substantial part of our revenue, particularly from the state and federal level in those years. So that gives you an idea of the importance of those funds. I mentioned with my broken down car example, another important way that we utilize the fund balance is to make sure that we're prepared for unforeseen needs or economic downturns. And in fact, the school board adopted a policy to ensure that we make sure that that's a focus and that we retain some funds in our fund balance, specifically as that rainy day fund, to make sure that we have enough there in case something happens, in case we have a problem. That school board policy DBA. It was approved on March 28th, 2017. And so that governs how we use that fund balance. And per policy, the school division is required to keep that minimum in unassigned fund balance as a reserve, and that amount is required to be updated annually so that we make sure we take into consideration inflation and changes in our student enrollment, so that is hopefully remains an amount that would be sufficient. And so we've looked ahead at those numbers for next fiscal year. That's always in our final budget that we present to you in June to approve that we update that. Went ahead and did that, and our fund balance would need to be $13.3 million in that designated reserve portion next year based on inflation and enrollment increases. So that's a $500,000 increase over the currently required amount. So that's a piece that's important to keep into consideration. And then of course, the strategic improvements and looking ahead at long-term impact to make sure we're making smart decisions. That's another important way that our fund balance has really helped us make good decisions along the way and address issues sooner rather than later when they do arise. I have just a couple of examples, which folks who've been on the board a while might remember. In 2021, deep in COVID, sort of our most impactful year, I think, the 2021 school year, we were really struggling with staffing. We were really in a challenging situation with keeping our classrooms staffed that year. And so it was really important for us to get out early and make sure that we could issue contracts. We just talked about the importance of that piece of the process, and make sure employees knew that they were going to have a job and knew how much they were going to be paid, so we could make a decision sooner rather than later on raises. We didn't have the state budget yet at the time that we got those contracts out, but we went ahead and did it. And our fund balance allowed us to go ahead and do that, so that, worst case scenario, we had the money in the bank that we could do it. We knew that was a critical need to get our classrooms staffed. The state money did come through, so we were okay, but that was an important time for us to be able to say, if we wait, it might be too late, and we may really struggle to fill these positions. Another example is Preston Park Elementary. We're working on that right now. We've worked to allocate a portion of our funds so that we don't rely quite so much on debt and can use local funding. And that was particularly important for Preston Park because, of course, over the last few years, I know anyone who's been involved in construction projects has recognized the significant changes in how much construction projects cost. We've had inflation, we've had supply chain issues during COVID, we've had staffing shortages in the construction industries. So all of that has resulted in all capital projects and building projects coming in much more expensive than originally was anticipated. So thankfully we were able to use a portion of that. We are also debt funding that project, but we are able to use a portion of those saved dollars to make sure that we could actually move forward and complete that project on time. So those are just a couple of examples of how maintaining those funds and being thoughtful about their use has helped the school division over time. So I wanted to spend a minute on what really is our fund balance. How can it potentially help us? So I've heard some, I think it's been in the news, talk about us having $61 million that we're just sitting on, that's sitting in the bank. So I assume that number came from our audited financial statements from last fiscal year, 23-24. We did finish that year with $61.5 million in fund balance across all funds. A lot of those funds are earmarked for specific purposes, however. So I wanted to take a second and kind of point out some of those restrictions. So of course, a portion is non-spendable in our general fund. It's reserved for stated purposes. So we cannot touch that. And that comes through the audit process. In our food services fund, those are federal dollars that are specific to food service. We cannot use them for anything other than student meals, maintaining our cafeterias, food service equipment, that kind of thing. Those funds must stay in that food services fund. Our capital fund, we have worked, actually we were following the lead of the city council back when we created that capital fund a few years ago to intentionally try to reduce our reliance on borrowing, on debt service, and use some funds when we have it available to cash fund more projects. So our capital fund is there committed for capital projects like Preston Park, projects that are ongoing, for the most part, already completed or in the process of being completed, or a few that haven't been started yet, but that are in our approved capital improvement plan. And in fact, I'll mention Mrs. Apel asked me today for a listing of kind of what projects have been supported by the funds in that capital fund. So I went ahead and brought that and just gave a copy to all of you so you would all have the same information. So I hope that will be helpful to see how in those just the few years that we've had that fund, it's allowed us to move forward and complete a lot of projects for a lot of different schools. Again, particularly in a time when our original goal in establishing that fund was to be able to build it up and move forward with sort of bigger projects. As it turned out, with COVID happening, it really allowed us to make sure that we could actually complete the projects that we already had going. So it really has been beneficial. And lastly, we have our school activity fund. That's a fiduciary fund, so those are not our dollars. That's what that means. Those are school funds. They are specific to each individual school and student groups that provide funds for their clubs or field trips, that sort of thing. So those funds must stay with those schools. So those monies are not available for just operating needs and that sort of thing. So what is available? How can our fund balance help us? As we've discussed, that is, we are being requested to do so this year in these difficult budget times. So we did end last fiscal year with $22.8 million in unassigned fund balance. We also had $5 million that we assigned, knowing that this was going to be, the next couple of years were going to be a little challenging, given the fact that all of that federal funding is now gone. We had an influx for a couple of years that really gave us some flexibility and allowed us to do some projects, including day tech and others. But those funds ended September 30 of 2024, of this fiscal year. So we knew those funds were going to be gone. So those funds are available to help us in this time. My hope initially was that it would last us a couple of years, but that might not be the case. So that would give us about $27.8 million kind of on the table. Of course, we just discussed that per our school board policy on ensuring that we maintain a reserve, $13.3 million of that would need to be retained if we want to maintain that reserve. We did budget to use about $1.75 million of fund balance in the current year. So if we end the year needing to do that, that would leave us about $12.8 million available to help us with meeting our budgetary needs for the coming year. So let's look at what that might look like. So if we look at all of the things that I mentioned that we've talked about previously and sort of the new things that have come to light, like potential modular units at our high schools for overcrowding, 12.8 would take care of a whole lot of that, but still leave us with about $6 million in cuts that we would need to put in place. So you see here some of the things we've talked about a lot already. We do have 7 student support specialist positions that are currently grant funded, and that grant is ending. So of course, we would love to keep those positions and be able to retain them and use local dollars to do so. But at this point, it's not feeling like we will have those local dollars. So that's something for consideration. You've heard tonight a lot of discussion about the 13 elementary Spanish positions. So that's a staffing issue, as we've talked about the daunting task of filling 40 vacancies in 1 year, but it is also a budgetary issue. So that is a consideration. We are looking at, of course, repurposing central office positions. Our instructional leaders and operational leaders certainly play an important role in, as Dr. White said, we are running a business, but that is, our classrooms are number one. So that is something that we certainly need to look at and consider. We've looked at the potential of increasing the deductibles on our HRA health insurance plan. So that would save us a good bit, almost $500,000. And actually, just a note about that, our insurance plans run a calendar year, not a fiscal year. So moving forward, the savings from that would be double that. But if we implemented that this year, it wouldn't take effect until January. So we would only realize half a year of the savings in doing so. We provide a lot of transportation support to our families. We have activity buses that run after school that not a lot of school divisions do, but we want to make sure that transportation is not an impediment to students being able to stay after to participate in sports and clubs and that sort of thing. That may be something that we need to consider doing away with. The level of maintenance of our facilities. There may be some things that we'll need to postpone and and look at and spreading across more years. So that's something that is certainly on the table. Certainly professional learning, travel costs, that sort of thing for our instructional staff and operational leaders is something that is on the table. And then changing our alternative transportation. That's something that we have unique needs sometimes for students with special needs, students experiencing homelessness, that sort of thing. So that's something that, fortunately, we heard a great report today about our transportation program and improvements there. So we would necessarily need to look at it. I'm not talking about no longer providing transportation, just looking at how we're doing that, maybe trying to use more bus transportation as opposed to a more individualized transportation and that sort of thing. So that's what that means. So all of those things would get us to a balanced budget. Now, I know we've had, as Dr. White said, some rumors, which hopefully are just that, but we certainly need to at least think about if that's something that's being talked about, taking available fund balance for other purposes in the city, then that 12.8 million would not be available to help us. So we would be looking at much more significant cuts that would be necessary. And, forget about modulars at the high school, all of those additional positions that our increased enrollment would be necessitating. We would not add those positions. So you see all of these things that I've talked about on the table having to go away, but that's still not enough. So ultimately, we'd be looking at probably approximately $6 million in staffing that would need to be reduced from the budget. Because unfortunately, if you look at our budget, that's the majority of the budget. There's not a lot of stuff really in the grand scheme of things. We're in a people business. So that's a significant number of positions that would absolutely have an impact on our class sizes. Yeah, we would try to minimize the impact on our classrooms, but again, that's where the majority of our staff and costs are. So I don't think that we could come up with that amount of a cut without touching our classrooms. Now, I will say, if we have to go in that direction, of course, our first step would be looking at what positions are already vacant. We do naturally have turnover, people retire, that sort of thing. So we would absolutely be focusing there first to try to minimize the impact on existing employees, to do everything that we can to keep those who are employed, but that could mean moving to a different school, moving to a different grade level to fill in, that kind of thing, is what we would be looking at. So that would be a significant challenge. A couple other things before I stop talking, just to point out, if that does become the reality, that the school's fund balance is taken to be used for other purposes, there are a few things that, just considerations to have on your mind, just that we would need to have some understanding of. As I talked a lot about fund balance being used to manage our cash flow and that sort of thing. We would obviously need the city treasurer to take that back on. We would bounce checks if that didn't happen. So city funds would have to make sure and cover our school board accounts to make sure that happens going forward. Up to this point, as part of that, again, that policy and funding formula, we're responsible for that. So members of our accounting group handle that now. So of course, we would no longer have those funds to make that happen. So we would have to rely on the city treasurer to do that. And then we would just need some guidance on what does moving forward look like. Would the schools be allowed to carry forward encumbrances at year end? I believe that is allowed on the city side, so I would hope that would be allowed, but we would just need an answer to that. Will there be a school funding policy or formula going forward? And if not, what would be the procedures that we would be, the new procedures that we would be asked to follow to request funding in future years, that kind of thing. Just to have in your mind for conversations of things that we would need some guidance on if these changes were to come to pass. So lastly, just next steps. So as you know, the City Council had their budget public hearing last night. They have a budget work session on the 5th, and then their vote is scheduled for the city's budget on May 12th. So we'll have some clarity after that, certainly. As I mentioned earlier, the state budget is with the governor, so hopefully by mid-May we'll have an answer as to kind of where that's going, and just hope that the budget is approved and we can move forward. And so we'll have that locked in. And then in terms of the schools process, we will certainly give any updates that we have at the May 13th school board meeting. At the May 27th meeting, we intend to provide you with the draft of the line item budget so we can talk and have that opportunity for you to, it's a lot of information, I know, to discuss and review and digest that information in advance of requesting your approval at the June 10th meeting. So that's what I have, but happy to take questions or comments.
We'll start at this end. Donna.
I just really want to say thank you. I mean, I know it's been stressful for you. The public doesn't know, but the administrative staff here comes here weekends, nights, and you still come with solutions, and I don't know how you do it. So thank you, because I know it's been stressful. And thank you to the administrative staff for helping her find ways. May not be things that we like to talk about, but we have to take them in consideration. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's a good point. And I'm the one standing here talking to you, but really there is a whole team that is looking at this and working to come up with solutions, as you said. So I appreciate that.
Mr. Link.
Thank you for all of your hard work and all of your guidance. And please keep bringing it to us. Thank you.
Gary.
Well, I want to speak first from a parent's point of view. I hope that this is a rumor when it comes to our rainy day fund, because the first thing I think about is my daughter, who is a special needs child, and she has improved a lot this school year alone because of the support staff. And imagine, I cannot imagine um, we don't have rainy day funds. We don't have the funds to pay staff, and my daughter, has to figure out a way to maybe have that support staff less. And that hurts. All right. And then from being an appointed member of this school board, um, I have never not been on this board and had good synergy with city council. So, I hope and pray that we can actually communicate effectively a little bit better so we can come to a resolve on, figuring out a way to help us while helping them, especially, I know it's uncertain times all across the board, but again, just based off the fact that it's a rumor, this stuff shouldn't have been a rumor. It should be communicated directly between board and council. That's how I've always known it to be. So the fact that we have to address this as a rumor, that hurts as well. So I appreciate you bringing all of the scenarios tonight. And, it's open, it's transparent, it's honest, and I'm hoping that we can definitely come to a resolve with some more clarity regarding the state budget approval and then also our local funding. So again, thank you. You already know how this board feels about you. I don't want to speak for the board, but, okay, thank you.
You can do it.
You know exactly how we feel about you, and we know we cannot do this work without your expertise and your passion when it comes to the budget and the finances of this school division. So just want to say thank you again.
Well, thank you. And if I could interject, because you made me think of something, Mr. Cherry, that I don't feel like I shared clearly. But I think something important to keep in mind, that assuming that the intent is the budget that has been presented thus far, and that we would be level funded and could use our fund balance to cover us for this next year. I think it's important to keep in mind that that's one and done. Then that money is gone. So we will need to be having these conversations, as Dr. White said in her introduction, starting very early in the year, so that we're not in this boat again at this point in the year, so that we have a whole year. But we will have to continue these conversations because that's kind of a one-year fix. So I thank you for reminding me of that.
And yeah, to even piggyback off of that, we're an appointed body. So for us to do this work, there's intentional passion when it comes to kids. So we're not politicians. We're here for the work of our community and the work of and the improvement of our kids. So we are advocating, but again, I just want to make sure the community knows, and even our city council understand that we are passionate about the children of this community. So again, thank you again.
I'm going to simply quote, I'm going to follow Judge Carson, because this stays in my mind. Even before I heard it from Judge Carson say it in our investiture, I'd heard it before, and it resonates with me. Every time you stop a school, you will have to build a jail. What you gain at one end, you lose at the other. It's like feeding a dog his own tail. It won't fatten the dog. I just hope that everyone that heard me say that gets the meaning. Our students are the future of our community. And we will either finish building Preston Park and build a new high school, or we will build another jail, or a bigger jail.
I don't even know what to say. As a parent, it's a little disappointing. I would hate to see loss of positions. I would hate to see children not even be able to get home from an activity bus that may need to rely on activities after school so they can stay out of trouble, so they don't need to end up in that bigger jail Ms. Watkins just mentioned. I know for me, it's a convenience that my son can get on that activity bus just so I can actually get dressed to come here for meetings. But I'm capable of picking him up, but that's just a small convenience to say, oh my goodness, I would have to figure something out, or I would have to do that. A lot of parents don't have that option. And just thinking about the other kids that don't have that option is heartbreaking. And I know you're doing an amazing job and you're trying to figure out ways for that. But Rocco, Eli has passed this on to me. But it's just, it breaks my heart. I can't imagine how the educators feel that are worried about having a job or having the job they initially signed up for and wanting to stay there. It's important that I go to work every day and I know what I'm going to do every day. And to have that stripped from me, I can't imagine how that would feel. But I do appreciate everything you and your team are doing and the countless hours that you put in. But I do hope and pray that council is listening to us, that they do understand this has to be a partnership, that we have to pour into our children because our children is what makes this world continue. If we don't put growth into them, what do we have? And I'm just worried about right now, where our crime has calmed down a little bit. If we put distrust in our children, they come to us to feel safe. And now they don't know the opportunities that could be removed because we want to keep them in the rate that we're going. We want to keep moving forward. And this can actually put us at a pause at a lot of services that we offer. Mr. Dwyer.
Honestly, I really have nothing that I could say that hasn't been said yet. I mean, I know like now with extremely troubling times and also having to deal with like rumors as well with like budgets and like fund balances, it's extremely difficult to like work for your team. So I'd just like to thank you and your team as well on your behalf for everything you do. And as someone who's like a student who's been able to benefit from like the amazing teachers of like RCPS and like Roanoke City, something I'm just like a little concerned as well. Just like, you know, if I'm able to benefit, I'm just worried like for like students of the future is like what will happen to them if like they aren't able to like be able to be taught by some of the amazing teachers that like I've been fortunate enough to have. So it's just something that's like just super concerning to think about as well. But I'd just like to thank you guys for everything, and I wish for the best in like these like troubling times. So thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to mention a couple things. Regardless of how the budget goes, some things that are realities for our division are that we're not shrinking. We're not getting smaller, even post-COVID when there was a boom in homeschool and virtual learning. Our enrollment and divisions batten down the hatches for enrollment to drop, which, you know, state funding comes from that. Ours did not, and I couldn't find it in my notes, but it's in something from the last about month or so. Our enrollment is the same pre-COVID and up, and our trajectory is upward. So that's why there's a need for, I think, $2 million worth of new positions just to meet the needs of our growing student body. And the need with respect to the high schools is not going to go away. And that $4.3 million is just the startup cost, which we've talked a lot about also being sustainable in our funding. So the $4.3 million for the learning cottages for the high schools, that's just the startup. But then there will be fees on top of that the next year and the next year and the next year to maintain them, while we deal with, over the next 10 years, a population that continues to grow. So these are things that are not going to go away regardless of how the budget shakes out this year. So things that we need to keep in mind being forward thinking. I also wanted to mention that something, you know, how do we know that we are being good fiscal stewards as a board and as a division? And so the first thing I would say that I can hang our hat on is we are an award recognized finance department. We go above and beyond to make sure that our monies are looked at and evaluated and audited. So there's that. But additionally, some of the things that I've seen in the now nearly 3 years that I've been on the board is, you know, we have assigned funds to help us off ramp from COVID monies. So we had it in our plan for, you know, years to make sure that we were making preparations to say goodbye to funds and how we were going to deal with that. It wasn't something we forgot about or took for granted. It's actually something we were working on planning for. Additionally, when Daytech was getting ramped up to be able to be opened, we had positions that were opened in our personnel so we could start budgeting before we had that personnel. So we could see what the long-term effects were going to be on our budget as we added another school and doubled our CTE seat capacity. So we know that all-in funding has been going away. So we've been looking at that, and there's been conversations about, are those tutors needed? Can we help with that maybe to some of these EL positions? Because they were probably needed because our EL services needed to be increased in the first place. So our division as a whole does an excellent job of being good fiscal stewards. And I try to impress this upon our audience and some of our council members present to say that I think we are demonstrating good fiscal stewardship as trustees should, that we are asking the good questions and we are being entrusted to make decisions with the funds on behalf of our students and staff. And the last point I wanted to make is last year when I was on the joint budget committee with City Council and the school board, one of the things during the City Council budget workshop that I noted is that our strategic plan is in line with the city's Destination 2040. So by funding the schools, we are funding the city's vision for its own future. So I just wanted to say we are really aligned, and I agree with what Mr. Cherry said about keeping these conversations open as we move forward.
Are there any other comments before I have anything to say? Some might think I said plenty last night.
Not at all.
Good. I want to emphasize something that you added at the end, Ms. Jackson. What we're proposing doing tonight, if we have a fund balance, is not a good fiscal use of funds. This is not what we would have done if we'd had more than a month. We have never, in my 8 years, and this isn't crying, this is fury. Never in 8 years have we put recurring costs in a fund balance use. It is what defines us as fiscal stewards. You don't let us make bad financial decisions. So I can only imagine, as you stand there calm and collected, better than me, what it feels like to make this proposal tonight. With that said, I would also like to remind us, all of us, anybody who's listening, Roanoke City Public Schools is the 5th largest employer in the Roanoke Valley. Layoffs in the 5th largest employer in the Roanoke Valley will have a ripple effect. It is economic development. It isn't simply our system. It is a network of ripples. People pay attention. This is a big deal. The other thing I would like to say, in line with what you're commenting on, that one of the big criterias in the All-American City Contest is the health and quality of your school system. We are a part of that application. They are looking at what you do to fund our schools. I hope you are as carefully. We have appreciated and we have enjoyed the good partnership that we've had with the city for a long time. I hope that the rumors are not true, because this would be catastrophic. Lastly, I would like to end on good news. Last night, speaking at City Council, one of the things that I was most touched by was the community that showed up. The people came. They're paying attention. They are educated through lots of people hard at work on the ground about our system, and I thank you, Dr. White, for creating a transparent system. This is a different place than it was 5 years ago, because people didn't have the information they needed to take this kind of power into their own hands. They had things to say I forgot, but it's a matter of public record. So I thank all the people who came out to speak on behalf of this wonderful community. We do have a strong city. We have a strong set of schools. And this is just calling into the future, wanting to keep it that way.
Madam Chair, and thank you, Mrs. Jackson, and to your team, again, for your tireless efforts. I know that you've been working day in, day out, over the weekend, over the holiday weekend. Again, just trying to be solution-oriented, and so I just want to thank you for that. And I do believe, Madam Chair, and to our school board as well, again, I always say that Roanoke will spoil you. And I do believe in the heart of Roanoke, and particularly Roanoke City. I do believe that we share the same morals and values when it comes to educating our students, and that we all want the same. And so I would hope that we would keep lines of communication open, that we would continue to be solution-oriented, and that we can band together as a community to see this through, so that, again, it all boils down to our children, protecting our dedicated staff as well as our children and the programs that we have in place to serve our community. Our community is unlike any other around us. Our unicorn, right? So we are in a class, by ourselves in Southwest Virginia. So we're doing good things for the right reasons, and I just applaud this board for courage, for your steadfast nature, and for your willingness to, again, fight the good fight for our children. And so I just want to thank our staff as well. We'll get through this time. Let's stay focused on the things that matter, and we'll see our way through. Thank you, Mrs. Jackson. Madam Chair, next on our agenda, I do want to take a moment to provide an update to the board as well as to the public about something else that has been in the news recently. And that is that the U.S. Department of Education has asked the state education departments to certify that all school divisions across the nation are following federal civil rights laws. And the VDOE has asked each school division to sign and submit the form. As a public school system, we are here to provide our students with high-quality teaching and learning. You know that. That is top of our list. But I do have to say, and I haven't talked about this in quite some time, but, again, I'm a teacher, I'm a superintendent, wear many hats, as many of us do, but I'm also a mom. I'm a mom. And so, and I remember, and as a mom, I think that all parents kind of want the same thing. We want our children to be healthy, happy, safe, and strong. I talked about that a lot, especially during COVID, remember? And so that is my daily prayer for my children. I think it is, I'm sure, the daily prayer of each and every parent, right? We want our children to be healthy, happy, safe, and strong. And we want, particularly when my children were in school, K through 12, what I wanted for them, I wanted their teachers to know them. I wanted them to be taught well. I wanted their teachers and staff members, bus drivers, staff members, to know them by name, by need, by strength, right? To know if they were having any psychological problems, if they emotional issues, to know what they liked, what they were interested in. Right? And I think that's what our parents want overall for their children. Our parents, and as a parent, we want the school system leaders, teachers, staff members, our kids, and to see their promise and potential. So I don't think that that's unlike anything else that our parents want. I think our parents want the same thing. So when we know these things, when we know our kids, when we know who they are, when we know what they need academically, when we know what they need socially, when we can see if they're eating by themselves in the cafeteria or if they're having problems in their friendships, that's tailoring the program those to each specific child, child by child, student by student. And that's what we do every day. We don't choose one group that's more particular over another group. We don't do that. We know, we care for and we take care of every individual. They're all unique. They're all special. And they're our responsibility. So these actions that we take every single day, I know for sure that they are in alignment with local, state, and federal laws. They are also in line with our morals and values as a school division. So when we checked the parameters of the certification and compared them to those parameters to our programs, it was clear that we are already following the letter of the law. And so I just wanted to take some time tonight to notify the school board, notify the public, that I will sign the certification form because I know for a fact that in Roanoke City Public Schools, that we are in alignment. I also want to make sure that we're protecting our funding, right? We don't want to jeopardize our state funding, but I can say with all certainty that we are in alignment with federal civil rights and anti-discrimination laws. And so I just wanted to share that with the school board and share with the public as well, that I will be signing the certification.
I would simply like to say that although I am sorry that we have to provide this kind of justification for doing what's right, I believe I speak for the school board when I say you have our support because we know we are in compliance legally and we will continue to do what's best for our children. Thank you for your leadership.
Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
All right. Thank you so much. We are now moving on to the work of the board. We have some ongoing business and work of the board items. If you will look at the next section, these are some things that have emerged from our retreat in terms of things to be addressed, in terms of what we talk about each and every year when we meet twice a year with our retreat. Among these are, we created a lot of work, particularly for our Policy, Governance, and Legislative Committee. So to look at some new policies, to think about some conversation in terms of potential op-eds to help keep people informed of what we're doing, as well as increasing, perhaps talking about difference or increasing academic updates as we continue to make progress in our recovery out of COVID learning. So those are just kind of our work of the board items. Does anybody, in looking at this, is there anything that on this list that you can recall that we maybe should have added or considered changing? Does this all look like what we all agreed to at our last retreat?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Very good. I'd also like to give a quick report on the NSBA annual conference, and I would invite anybody else who was in attendance at that conference to chime in. I just generally, this year we went to the NSBA National Conference in Atlanta, Georgia. This is a national conference of school board members and superintendents and education leaders from across the country. And each year, we have gone to this conference several years as members of the board. And what we try to do is go and collect and look at best practices, talk to people, engage in conversation, and some years we present. What we learned at NSBA, as well as other conferences and educations, is an opportunity for us to continue our thoughtful work here in the division. And this year was no different. We try to bring back these insights in practical and meaningful ways. I don't know if anybody who went with this year it was Ms. Trigg, Ms. Watkins, Dr. White, and Ms. Quintana. I don't know if there's anything in particular you'd like to add to our experience there this year at this time.
I would like to say, yes, that I don't know if it's good, but it was great to see school boards from all over the country with the same concerns that we have. but it was also uplifting to see that amount of people with the same passion that we have for kids. So it gave me hope that we're gonna be okay.
Good. That's nice. That's a great takeaway, I think. Anyone else? Anybody add anything to that?
I'll just chime in that the sessions, particularly those, on special education funding, I found those really insightful, particularly as we're having these funding discussions and thinking about the, accessing and utilizing funding around special education, making sure that many of our vulnerable learners in those programs are adequately funded. So, and then also other insights on K-12 communication strategies. I know that many of us were in that session together about looking at various ways to make sure that there's two-way communication. Certainly, we've done a lot to try to improve our communication, but hearing from other school divisions on other ways and kind of the things that are posted, the things that are presented, and how they're presented, I found that very informative in how we're communicating. So I brought that back to the team, and we're going to be taking some of those things into consideration.
Thank you. Is there any future business? All right, with that said, the first meeting in the new building for the school board is adjourned.
Join.
Great.